Hey guys, it's Jessica. Welcome to my weekly reading update. This week I have a 5-star fantasy read. I have a super cozy sci-fi book that I really enjoyed. I have a couple of DNFs, and then I also have a library haul. So we're going to be looking at some books I got from the library and trying to pick out some books that I might like to read in the second half of the month. We are going to go ahead and get started with the question of the week. And the question of the week this week is, have you ever DNF'd a book and then gone back to it and really, really loved it? And if that is the case, I would love for you to tell me what book that was and what made you go back to it, what made it so amazing, all that stuff. I would really love to hear about that because I DNF a lot of books and sometimes I do go back to them and I just think it's really interesting. I finished 2 books this week. That's right. Yes, 2 books. And they were both really good. I'm going to start out by talking about the one that I did pick last week with my wheel spin, and that is Automatic Noodle by Annalee, Newitz. I didn't really know what to expect going into this. It's described as a cozy sci-fi novella. I knew that it was about robots who start a restaurant, and that sounded really interesting. But other than that, I kind of went into this a little bit blind, never read anything else by the author, and honestly, I had a really, really good time with this one. I think it was just the right amount of cozy and darkness mixed together for me. Let me explain a little bit about it, and I think it'll make more sense. So we begin the book in a restaurant that is shut down with a bunch of robots who have been working in this restaurant and making food, who find that they have been also shut down. And they wake up, or one of them wakes up and wakes up the others, and they're going, well, what has happened? Who shut us down? Why are we not running the restaurant? What's going on? And should we, I guess, open the restaurant on our own and start again? And so that's kind of the beginning, but there's a lot of backstory to that. Yes, it's about robots that run a restaurant, and that's very cozy, and the robots are very cute and sweet, and they do have a found family. But we're also in a world where the United States has actually experienced a civil war, and California, which is where these robots are, has actually split off from the United States. And it's not super clear to me everything that the war was fought over, but one part of it seems like it may have definitely been rights for robots that have consciousness. And there are a lot of scenes, like flashbacks to the war for the robots in the kitchen that fought in the war, and their experiences there. And there's a lot of like darkness to that. And there's darkness to the world that is coming out of this terrible war, but there's also a lot of hope. And one of the ways that the author deals with this hope is through kind of the universal experience of really, really enjoying tasty food. And I don't know why this worked for me so well, because y'all know if you've been here before that cozy fantasy, or cozy sci-fi in this case, cozy's hard for me. If it's too cozy and there are no stakes at all, I'm not particularly going to care about the book, to be honest. I like things that are a little more intense generally. This book worked for me because I think of that darker setting, even though the interactions with the robots and the people, for the most part, were pretty cozy. There is a conflict, but it's not major. It's pretty cozy. So I wouldn't say that if you're afraid of me talking about it in a dark way, that you should not read it. I think you should read it. I think a lot of people are going to really, really love this. I don't know. It was just great. Friendly robots, making food together, making noodles together. Yes, that's the name of the book. I just thought it was really enjoyable, and I would recommend it. I'll do a more in-depth review at the end of the month. I'm still kind of gathering my thoughts about it because I was kind of all over the place while I was reading it. I was like, well, sometimes I was like, this does not have enough stakes, and other times I was like, ooh, this is much more interesting than I thought it was going to be. But I just had a really good time with it, and I would recommend it. And I don't have a star rating for it yet because I'm still considering, but I just thought it was really great, and I'm really glad that I got to read it. And it did just come out this month, so I would recommend checking it out. And then the other thing that I finished this month was a book that I've been anticipating reading it, but I've also been like super terrified that it was not going to be something I would enjoy, and I was so wrong. I was so very wrong, and that is The Children of Gods and Fighting Men by Shauna, Lawless. This is a historical fantasy that has its basis in real Irish folklore and mythology, which personally I was not familiar with at all before I read this book. But now I know a little bit more. I know what I read in the book, and then I know what I read on Wikipedia, but I would like to find out more also. And I was very intimidated by this because it does have a reputation for being an epic fantasy that does not hold your hand, and it does not. If I were going to give you a comp title for this book, and I don't give this lightly, it would actually probably be A Song of Ice and Fire. It would be Game of Thrones. It had that same kind of historical feel to me, and the same darkness and ambiguity of character motivations. I just thought it was really great. In this book, we are following two POV characters. We have Fola, and I don't want to say it incorrectly. I think it's Gormla. Yeah, Gormla. So we are following these two female characters, and they are members of two different kind of, I want to say kind of like mythological races, mythological beings that are real mythology. And these characters, at least some of them are actual characters, not characters, actual people who lived in Ireland in this time period. And I thought that all of the historical detail was so very, very well done and so easy to understand for someone like me who doesn't have a background in historical fiction or in Irish historical fiction at all. I don't want to spoil too much of the plot for you, but it is the story of these two women who are kind of, I would say kind of on opposite sides. They're definitely on opposite sides. We learn about the political structure of the world at the time. We learn about these mythological beings and where they live and what their kind of situation is within the story. And it's very much a work that I would consider to be very feminist in the sense that the female characters are not always going to be sympathetic. At least one of them is, in fact, quite unsympathetic, but she's also extremely fascinating. And that's kind of where I got that Game of Thrones reference from, because I think that if you enjoyed the gray female characters from that story, I think you would also really enjoy this. And as I said, I'm not spoiling anything about the plotline in this, and I wouldn't even know how to because it's so complicated. But it's just really good. It's just like, it's really amazing, and I don't know why. I don't know why I haven't heard more about it than I have. I just absolutely loved it. I immediately went online to see if I could buy a copy for myself, and I found out that the hardcover is, of course, it is out of print. It is out of print and expensive. And so I'm probably not going to be getting this in hardcover. And then I was like, well, I'll buy the paperback, and the paperback is, the first book's red and not this nice color, and I was sad about that, but so we'll see. But it's amazing, and I had to restrain myself from starting the second book immediately, but I did get it from the library. So I may still be reading the second book this month. I mean, I think I'm going to tear through this trilogy. It's just so good. I just loved it so much, and I will have more deep thoughts about this of my wrap up at the end of the month. I am not quite capable of them yet, but just a fantastic book. Amazing writing, amazing characters, amazing historical research, and yeah, I just really loved it. So if you have not read this, you should definitely check it out, especially if anything I said sounds good to you, if you like any of those series that I mentioned, if you like a strong female character. So good. And I am also, as I mentioned last week, continuing to read Jonathan Strange and Mr Norrell. I am 12% of the way through this book, which, I mean, it's a hefty book, but I feel like maybe I could be further along. This is, I think, the third time that I have tried to read this book, and every single time, I think I've made it further this time than I did the other two times I tried to read it. But every time I try to read it, I get tripped up by how slowly the story moves. And I'm somebody who really reads for characters, and I'm having a little bit of a harder time finding any characters that I can really kind of like latch onto, which maybe isn't what she's doing here, but I am going to continue. I'm not abandoning this book or anything like that, but I am probably going to move through it pretty slowly, because I find that when I don't have that one thing to hold me in a book, it's harder for me to motivate myself to read it. So I'm just reading it a couple chapters at a time, and we are going to get through it. And I am really enjoying the world building. And I will say that Susanna Clarke has a very dry sense of humor that is evident in Piranesi, which I've already read, and is even more so, I would say, in this book. And it's very enjoyable. And I am hoping it's going to pick up a little bit, but even if it doesn't, I am still glad to be reading it, but it's going to be a while. So I don't know if I'm going to mention this every week, because probably it's just going to be, and I continued to read Jonathan Strange and Mr Norrell, and I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see, but I am having a good time. And then we have a series of books that I actually tried to start this week, and then I don't know if I want to say DNF'd. Maybe for at least one of them it's a real DNF, but I think sometimes I'm just not in the mood for the things that I think I'm going to be in the mood for. I wouldn't consider myself a mood reader, but sometimes when I set up my TBR, I think I need to have this wide range of things, but then it turns out I'm in the mood for like one thing that month. So I did DNF 3 books, by which I mean I barely started them and then decided they weren't for me. One of them I read a little more of. I'll get to that. So the first book that I decided I don't want to read right now is Kitty Cat Kill Sat, which is a book. I don't have a physical copy of this. It's about a house cat, a sentient house cat who runs a space station in some kind of a post-apocalyptic Earth kind of situation. And I think it's going to be really cute, but the feeling that I got from it was that we were basically going to be having the cat's like inner monologue for like most of the book. And it was funny, but it wasn't what I was in the mood for, because I wasn't in the mood for something that light. I think especially after I read, as I said, Automatic Noodle earlier, and that was like light, but not so light that I wasn't getting anything else from it. And I think I will get more from this book, but I couldn't get into it right now. So I put it down, and I'm going to read that one again later. That's a definite one that I'm going to pick up again. This next one, I don't know if I'm going to pick up again or not. I think I probably would. I picked it from my TBR this month because I got the prompt. I think, I don't remember, Happy Book or something like that. It was something like a mood change. And I was like, I want something light, good. But then I didn't, and that was 12th Night. And I started it, and then we're in the main character's, this football player's head in the very beginning of the book, and I think maybe it's that I don't care about football at all, but I know that's going to get better, and like there's other stuff going on in this cute little teen romance that I really, really want to read. So I do think, again, I'm going to go back to this one, but it was just I was not in the head place for it right now. So this is probably going to be one I am going to go back to. I just decided that I'm going to go back to it, but I don't think I'm going to read it this month. So this one's off my TBR for the month. And then I do have one book that I started, and this is one of the ones I was really excited for. And I just couldn't get into the writing style, and that is Infinity Gate by Carey. I read maybe like 15% of this, and I think it's fine. I think maybe it's that I read Times Agent, which is actually about pocket universes and not the multiverse, earlier this month, but it is a little similar, I think, in some ways. And then I was having a hard time connecting to characters, and I just wasn't in the mood for it. I don't know. And I read another book by this author before. I read The Girl with All the Gifts by Carey, and I did enjoy it. I don't think it was like a favorite book of mine, but I did like it. So I don't know, because I was very not into it, but I know so many people really enjoy this book. So this one, again, I'm not sure. I'm putting it down for now. I have a real firm, if I'm just like not having a good time with something, I usually won't push through it past a certain point unless there's still, like, if I'm bored, I guess. And I think I was just a little bored. If I'm bored, I won't keep going, because I can push past other stuff. But if I'm bored, I will never pick the book up, and then I'll just not read anything. And then that just spirals on itself into a reading slump. And so I usually just don't. So this is one of the books I got from the library this past month. And I at least tried them all. I did read 2 of them and really enjoyed them. This one, I don't think I'm going to finish this month. I think it's going to go back to the library, but I'm glad I tried it. And if you want to try to talk me into continuing it at a later time, I am very open to that. It just didn't work for me this month for some reason. All right, so we talked about what I read and we talked about what I am currently reading, which is Jonathan Strange and Mr Norrell. And now we're going to talk about what I'm going to read next. So I have kind of blown through my TBR for this month. I have 3 books left on it, I think, when I looked at it last. Let me see. Yes, I had 3 books left on it. So I have The Good House by Tananarive Due, and that one is a haunted house story. And I'm going to be completely honest with you guys and tell you that it is 95 degrees outside right now, and I'm not in the mood. I am not in the mood for anything fall-like. It is not fall. It is not. I live in the southern Midwest, and it is very hot. So I'm not ready for that. So we're not going to read that right now. And then I do have Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green, which I do want to read. I'm definitely planning to fit that in before the end of the month. And then I have this novella, By Dusk by Day, by Shauna McGuire, which I think this is a little bit of a, not scary, but like a little bit more of a horror story. And so I don't know that I'm probably going to get to this one, but I might. This one I might still read this month. But I've just been feeling like I've kind of gotten through everything or decided I don't want to read it this month. So I do have like a few library books. So let's talk about the library books. I went to my library today because my partner Sean is reading the Spy Family series, and he needed the next volume. So we went to the library that's closest to us, and I picked up 4 books. I just kind of browsed through like the new releases and the shelves. I picked up 4 books, and I'm going to read one of them for sure next. And I would also love it if you all would tell me which one of these books you think that I might enjoy. Or if you've read one of them, let me know what your experience was like. But let's look at the library haul. And can I tell you all that I legitimately love libraries so much. It's just such a treasure that you can go to a library and for free, they will let you leave with books that are like basically brand new. And these are all books that are on my TBR in some sense. So they're not books that I had on hold. They're not books that are like officially ones that I was planning to read soon, but they are the books that were there. And I think sometimes that like forces me to read. Like I read The Children of Gods and Fighting Men. I would never have picked that up. I mean, I might have, but I was intimidated. But because it was at the library, I was like, yes, now. So I have 4 books, and we're going to look at them. The first one is Angie Kills a King, and it's by Evan Lycum, and I really hope I'm saying his name correctly. And this one is supposed to be, I think, maybe a little bit of like a grimdark fantasy story. I'm feeling like it might be something maybe like a little bit Joe Abercrombie-ish. I'm not 100% sure on that. If you have read this book, I would love if you would let me know. This is a new release. It's only been out for a couple of months, and I've seen a lot of positive buzz. I know it's a debut author. So it says, Angie works as a castle servant, doing laundry for a king she hates. So when a rare opportunity presents itself, she seizes the chance to cut his throat. Then she runs for her life. In her wake, the kingdom is thrown into disarray, while a bounty bigger than anyone could imagine lands on her head. And there's a lot more, but I think that sounds like a good action-packed kind of fantasy. And so that is definitely a possibility for me to read. It's also not too long. It's like 340 pages, which for a fantasy is basically a novella, right? So let me know if you've read that one. And then I picked up a science fiction book, and I have already read some science fiction this month. So I don't know if it's going to be this, but maybe it will be, because I have really been wanting to read this, and that is Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. I know there's a movie that is based in part on this book, but I haven't seen it. So this would be completely new for me. And it's also not very long, which I like. Mickey Barnes is an expendable, now on his 7th iteration, living and dying among his fellow colonists on the near uninhabitable ice world of Niflheim. I hope I said that right. Some consider him immortal. Others believe he's a soulless monstrosity. For the past 9 years, he's been deployed for hazardous assignments and subjected to experiments that test the limits of human endurance. His humanity sacrificed for the greater good. So it's about a clone. Okay, so this is Mickey 7. He's clone number 7. And it says here that something happens to him, and when he returns to base, he meets the next generation, Mickey 8, neither of whom is willing to recycle himself. But if anyone discovers multiple Mickeys exist, they'll both be executed, and there will never be a Mickey 9. So that's kind of like the blurb for this, and I think that sounds great. Haven't read a lot of stories about clones, that would be a different one for me. So this is a definite possibility. And the next book I have is one that I don't know that much about, but it has a very striking cover, and it is an author that I have wanted to read something from, and I've seen some good stuff. This is Novella by Paolo Bacigalupi, and it has this like cover with this crazy dragon's eye, I think it is, on it. This is a fantasy that is set in a medieval Italy-inspired world, which I think sounds really cool. I'm very into historical fantasy now that I have read one. I'm basically an expert. I don't think it's actually Italy. I think it's just inspired by Italy. Anyway, this sounds really great. I know that this author also wrote The Wind-Up Girl. Other than that, reading the description did not make it really any more clear to me what this is about. So I would love to hear from you if you have read this book and if you think that I would enjoy it, because I picked it up basically because the cover looked awesome and they had it out on a dragon display at the library. So of course, but yeah, let me know. And then the last one that I have is one that, I mean, you've all heard of, and it is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. I have been meaning to read this since it came out. I've actually had it up from the library twice before, and I've never started it, and I don't know why that is exactly. I know that it has an older female protagonist. I think she's a retired pirate who has come back to be a pirate again, yes. And I've just heard like super great things about it. I know it does have a sequel coming at some point, so it's not going to be a standalone. And I've always wanted to read it. So this one is like a definite possibility for me to get to this time. So let me know. So we've got these 4 books. We've got Angie Kills a King, Mickey 7, and The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, and we have Novella. So let me know if you would recommend any of those books to me, and I will check them out. I'm probably going to read more than one of them before the end of the month. So yeah, just let me know which ones you think I would enjoy, because I just really want to read some new stuff. And like I said, man, I love the library, and it just made me happy to go there today. All right, so we are gonna do the question of the week now. So the question of the week was, what is a book that you have DNF'd and then gone back to and had a good time? Okay, so basically like a DNF fail. Like I DNF'd it and then I failed at it. So I have one. Please leave your answers to this question in the comments. I would really love to know what books brought you back. Mine is actually gonna be one that I didn't DNF for very long. Maybe it's a cheat, I don't know. And that is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. So I see a lot of people reading this right now, and I feel like it's very split between people who really love the book and the humor and love that it feels kind of like an action movie, and people who are like, yeah, this is a lot. And you know what? It's a lot. It legitimately is a lot. And the first 30% of the book was an experience for me. And I actually had moved it in my story graph from reading to DNF'd. And then I thought about it for a few days and realized that I just didn't feel like I was ready to be done with this book. So I pulled it back out again and started reading it, and it ended up being 5 stars for me. I felt like the characters in this book ended up with a lot more depth to them than I was expecting from the beginning, which had a lot of humor that was a lot. But like I said, I really enjoyed it. So this is a great book. But I did almost DNF it, and I wouldn't have known if I had kept it that way. So I do DNF, like I said, a lot of stuff. And sometimes I'm like, am I missing something? And so I want to go back to the ones that are worth going back to. So I'm curious your answer to this question. So let me know. Okay, so what's coming up this week for me? I am going to be filming my September new release preview for sci-fi, fantasy, and horror books. So that is going to be out on Friday. So you can look forward to watching that and seeing if maybe there's some new reads coming out for fall that are going to be really great. This is a good one, a good month. I thought August was a little, like, it was fine, but there weren't a lot of books coming out in August that I was super excited about, but September has a ton. So go ahead and check out that video when it's out. I think that you are going to enjoy it. So go ahead and answer the question of the week, or let me know which one of those library books that I had in my haul that you think I would enjoy and you would like to see me read. And if you're feeling quiet, but you made it to the end of the video, want to let me know you were here, I would love to hear from you. Go ahead and leave me a sword emoji in honor of my favorite book of the week, which was The Children of Gods and Fighting Men. I hope that you all have a absolutely fantastic week. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.